Good morning, everybody. So it's been a while since I recorded a video of any description. No real reason. I don't like to just bash out videos for the sake of it. There weren't really any more Automobilista 2 or Zeto Corsa mods that kind of piqued my interest. So it just went a bit quiet, really. But this weekend, I figured I'd try something a little bit different. As you see me crashing away in the background there. Yeah, so I'm a huge bike racing fan, as well as car racing fan, probably even more so. It's just that we're not exactly spoilt for choice with good bike racing games. So I just don't do that many bike racing videos. But this week, the new Isle of Man TT game came out. This is the third one. And if you're not familiar with the Isle of Man TT, I don't know how much crossover there is with you guys with the cars and the bikes. But yeah, if you're not familiar with the Isle of Man TT, it makes the Nordschleife look like a go-kart track. It's by a mile the most dangerous motor race in the world. It's a 30-kilometer long track on public roads. It is a time trial, and the bikes and riders are set off sort of one after another. Quickest time wins. I think the senior TT is like 4 or 5 laps around the island, and the entire race takes about 2 hours. So it's a long race, an extremely dangerous race. People are killed every year almost without fail, and this year will be no exception. So do I think this game does the Isle of Man justice? And maybe. I hasten to get into reviews because I don't really review games. But to quote a favorite sketch of mine, I reckon a whole bunch of stuff. So do I reckon that this game does a good job of replicating the feel of the TT? And I'm gonna say sometimes yes, sometimes no. When you're on the track and you're going through these streets like this, oh lord, we have a couple of goes at this track. It doesn't really get any better. But yeah, when it's like this, when you're on the track and like the trees and stuff are smashing past you and people's houses, and then you go over a humpback bridge, and when it's all going like really well, it looks and feels amazing. They really nailed that sense of speed and like terror when you get close to a wall. And they did a astonishing job actually with the hitboxes on this, because you can really get very close to the walls and the scenery without hitting stuff, which is, you know, massively realistic. If you go and look at some of the clips of the TT, oh my god, they get close to some of the scenery. But it is, as I am demonstrating, a ludicrously difficult game. You can turn the racing line on, but, you know, what self-respecting sim racer races with the racing line on? But then again, this isn't a normal racing game. You're not trying to learn, you know, a 1 minute 30 lap where you can get the repetition going again and again and again, and you can learn the track in like, you know, 15 minutes, half an hour maybe, to a degree where you can enjoy it. A lap around this place, if you're quick, is like 20 minutes. And that's just the big track. It's split up into various roads around the island that get bunched up and packaged in various configurations into lots of other different tracks, which gives you a little bit more variety or so. But even a lot of those tracks are like 3 or 4 minutes long, so you're trying to, apart from the big track, you're also trying to learn lots of smaller, at least Le Mans size tracks. as well as having to learn the physics of a bike. So yeah, it is extremely difficult. Like, imagine trying to play. It's much more like trying to play a rally game without the pace notes. It really is. Like, you can learn this place, but it is going to take you a long time. But yeah, when it's going well and you're on track and you've learned one of the sections and you've really got it nailed, it's really good. I think it could benefit from a proper tutorial, like the way Gran Turismo does it, where you get medals for each section of track. I think that would be really useful to actually really break the track down into much smaller sections, in maybe a more, I think it tries to do it in a more organic way, but it doesn't really work. So the career mode, in inverted commas, in this game is, I don't even want to call it career mode, and I think it's where this game maybe falls down in the, they've tried to create a sort of, oh dear, that lamppost, how can I put it, like a kind of season on the Isle of Man, and that doesn't happen. The Isle of Man is one race, which is the grand finale of the road racing season. One of the other big races is the Northwest 200. A lot of them are based in Northern Ireland, and whether this is a licensing issue, I don't know, because you see a lot of these road races in Ride 4, which is, again, really good bike game if you're into your road racing. Some of the road racing tracks on that are absolutely brilliant, but there's no Isle of Man. Obviously, this is a different developer. If you played Rims, it's the same people who made Rims as this one. I haven't played Rims, so I can't tell you if it feels similar or not. And I also can't remember what point I was going for. Oh yeah, so considering this game is supposed to be a replica of maybe the Isle of Man, they've tried to almost gamify it too much. Instead of trying to make a bike season on the Isle of Man, I think they should have split the entire event up into a longer game. Like, make it much more engaging, build it around the grand race. I'm trying to describe how I would go about this, because it's difficult. Like, the Isle of Man TT is such an event on its own that it didn't need to be split up into lots of little tiny, almost arcadey feeling races. Like, there are, so you get to do a couple of events. There's time trials, there's races, and when you're trying to replicate an authentic event, a lot of it just feels off. When you've got this closed circuit racing, so you will race against other riders on track, just on a grid like a normal racing game, and you'll do it in sections of the track where it just doesn't happen in real life. Like, that's not the TT. This might not bother you, all that kind of stuff might not bother you as much as it bothers me. I was hoping for a much more authentic real world experience of what it is like to compete at the Isle of Man. And there's also only 2 classes of bike, which again is really disappointing. There's a couple of different classes that do compete at the Isle of Man. You've got the Superbike, which is the fastest production bikes money can buy. You've got Super Sport, which is again a little bit slower. They're essentially extremely highly modified road bikes. The Super Stock, which is like as close as you can get to a bike that's just bought off the shelf and stuck on the track. There's the TT0, which is electric bikes, and there is the lightweight class, which are like strange little bikes. I think they're like sort of 400cc things. You get some interesting bikes in that class. It's not one of the more popular ones, but it is there nevertheless. So to only have 2 two classes of bike is a little bit disappointing. And this is another thing, I don't know why this is, with the exception of the MotoGP series, why this is such an annoying thing that happens in bike games, but you only race against 10 other people. This is a 30-kilometer track, and you're racing against 10 people. Now, I don't know what the reason is for that. It's the same in Ride, it's the same in Rims, and I don't know why this is a bike racing thing. That, you know, lots of people compete at the TT. They're not all quick, but they are all there. And when, again, you're trying to create a really authentic experience, and there are lots of these little niggly things that just ruin it slightly. I would not recommend buying this, probably not, unless you are a hardcore bike fan, and that goes for bike racing games in general. It's so difficult to make an accessible bike racing game and also make a sim when the peripherals are just never going to exist. It's like, yeah, I get it, you know, do you really want, like, a bike, you know, like you would have your wheel sat in your room that you can go riding? I don't know, maybe some people do. I don't. Sometimes I like to just sit down with my controller and play my racing game, and as long as the bike feels good, I'm not really that fussed if it's realistic, if that makes any sense. As long as it feels good and there is a learning curve of some description, and that it feels good. I've got a few observations, I guess, of the physics model in this game. Again, having never played Rims, I couldn't tell you how close or far away it is from that, but the only games I really know are Milestone games, so the Ride series and MotoGP. And while I do have some vast criticisms of the way Milestone goes about building the MotoGP games, Ride 4 has always been pretty solid, and I do enjoy the physics in the Milestone games. And this isn't wildly different. It is a little bit more twitchy. The bikes are incredibly responsive, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. This is going to sound a little bit weird, but sometimes they're just a bit too responsive. Like when you're trying to hit like a double apex of a corner or something, and you want the bike to drift out wide, just a little bit. You want to kind of, you know, use the bike's momentum, use some inertia to just let it drift out wide. And sometimes it doesn't feel like there's quite enough weight in the bike to let it do that. It sometimes feels a little bit floaty, and you have to make a lot of little micro adjustments. It sometimes doesn't feel all that smooth, and it'll be similar sometimes when you're going through like a low speed corner. You'll be trying to make some sort of small adjustments on the stick to try and get the bike really smoothly through a corner, but because it's sometimes a little bit twitchy and a little bit too responsive, you'll sometimes hook the bike up way better than you meant to, and it'll oversteer horribly. This could just be my style. I did find it better if you put it on the most realistic physics model. Don't use one of the simple ones, and then it definitely improves that. I started on like the intermediate physics model, and it was a lot more pronounced then, because how they've done it, whether the bike just grips up more to try and make it easier for you. I do play with the joint brakes. The joint brakes are good. You can split the brakes into front and rear if you want. I play with them joint. I think it works fine. I'm not good enough at the game yet to really be splitting that up, because it's just knowing when to use both brakes and what type of corner when you can't even find your way around the track. Yeah, I've only had this game like a day, a couple of hours, so I've not even, I've done like maybe 2 or 3 complete laps of the full track, and I've probably not seen all the configurations yet. So these I guess are just, you know, ill-informed reckons about what I think about this game. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't pay full price for this. I got it from a reseller because, you know, cost of living crisis, I guess. I like it enough that I'm gonna keep playing it, because the Isle of Man is just so cool, and it replicates the aspect of being on track absolutely brilliantly. Like, it is fantastic when you're on track. Okay, you're gonna crash a lot, it's gonna happen. It's a difficult game. Nothing we can do about that, but you will get there, and when you do start recognizing the bits of track and you start putting the corners together and you're in a nice flow, it looks and feels awesome. So when you're on track, it's brilliant, but I don't think it really recreates the TT as an event very authentically, which is a little bit of a shame.